Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Monday, September 9th. LA Galaxy entering El Trafico week. The results over the weekend giving them a lot of hope for what could be the biggest game of the season coming up on Saturday. In fact, it is the biggest game of the season so far in 2024. We're going to talk a little bit about that, talk about the results that have sort of led to that, what the LA Galaxy need to do as they continue this push towards the postseason. And along the way, we're going to have a lot of fun, too. Joining us in just a little bit is LA Galaxy legend Cobi Jones. We're going to be talking about Ventura County FC. So we have a lot of stuff, lots of fun to talk about, lots of stuff to get to. Let's not wait any much further. Here we go. Mr. Kevin Baxter is in the house as well. Kev, how you doing, bud?
All right, how are you? Hey, guess what I get to do tomorrow?
What you get to get on an airplane?
No, tomorrow I get to interview Greg Vanney.
Greg Vanney, that guy?
Yeah, I was supposed to go out and meet him in person, but the lovely and talented Mrs. Panda needs the communal car tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So our interview has been changed from in person to telephone, which I much prefer in person. But, you know, I'm going to start the interview off. I'm not beyond admitting when I was wrong, although I don't know whether this counts as being wrong. But anyway,
yes, it does.
The point is
Yes, you're wrong.
The last question I asked him last year at the end of last season was, are you still the guy who should lead the Galaxy forward? They had just lost 18 games, made the playoffs once in 3 years. I thought it was a fair question, and Greg answered it. So my question tomorrow is not going to be, do you think you're the guy to lead the team forward? I'm going to say, are you the MLS coach of the year? They've won 15 games. They're going to win 18.
Right.
They lost 18. They're going to win 18. They could finish first in the conference. Get this. The Galaxy, with all their MLS Cups, they haven't won the conference in the regular season since 2011.
Yes, that is correct. 2011. Mm-hmm.
So, and so I was talking to someone at the Galaxy today, and they were saying, well, you know, what about Tato Martino? Hey, he's had a team with Messi. They were the Leagues Cup champion last year. They made the U.S. Open Cup final and the playoffs. You know, no, yeah, he's done a great job, and they're leading the Supporters' Shield standings, not by much. The Galaxy could still catch them. I don't think there's anybody that you could talk about. Columbus and some of the other, they're the defending MLS Cup champions. How can you be coach of the year if you win again when you won last year? It's Greg Vanney. Greg Vanney is the coach of the year.
Wow.
And I don't even really think anyone else is close. Do you?
I do think it's a new record for you. I think you went through all of your material in the first 90 seconds.
Oh no! Look, I got a whole bunch of stuff.
Okay, good. I was worried about you. Yeah,
I'm locked and loaded.
No, I don't. I mean, it's tough. I think that, yes, you can argue Wilfred Nancy. Yeah, he was there last year. The MLS Cup winners. You know, the whole. They come back. You know, they won Leagues Cup. It's like, okay, I get it, but like, he's also doing, like, to do that again is a big deal, right? And so
it is.
Do you have to be, you know? Realistically, if Greg Vanney and the front office weren't as, you know, incapable of getting things done last year, then Greg Vanney doesn't have the chance to do this year, right? Maybe there's something there that you can't really balance that. I know what you're saying. I'm actually trying to come up with arguments that don't agree with you because I think that it's still a long road for Greg Vanney if he thinks he's going to win MLS Cup. But if they win the Western Conference, if they're able to take down LAFC in the last game, if they're able to sort of come in there and be a team that is a realistic MLS Cup contender, which I think they are, but I still feel like they're on the outside. They're an underdog in that category. They're not like firmly locked into the center of that. It feels like there's still a lot that needs to be done for the LA Galaxy or maybe that Greg Vanney is due. But then again, you look at it and talking about the LA Galaxy's best seasons ever, he's on pace to possibly have one of the best seasons ever for the Galaxy.
You're right. I still don't think they're a Supporters Shield a contender. I mean, they are,
they aren't. I know what you're saying. I'm with you on that.
But and you said, with Greg Vanney in the front office struggled last year and they proved this year they're better. I'm going to sort of remove Greg Vanney from that, given the performance this year. I put a lot of that on the front office last year, and there is a new front office, and they gave Greg Vanney the tools to work with. I don't think he went from being really stupid to being really smart.
I agree with that.
I think he just had the tools to work with. And it wasn't like Gabriel Pick is a great player, but it wasn't like they brought in a Suarez or a Giroud or Lloris. And when I do agree with you too that the Galaxy are going to be underdogs. Maybe the first and second round of the playoffs, they'll be favored.
Correct.
But when they get to after that, likely playing LAFC in the conference final, maybe Real Salt Lake going to MLS Cup final, I still think people are waiting to say, okay, Galaxy, prove yourself. There's going to be a lot they're going to have to prove in the offseason.
Well, I think one of those things that going to proving himself is this Saturday, right? I mean, you want to prove to it, then show up and beat LAFC. You want to prove to everybody that you're a contender, then show up and beat, quote unquote, what seems to be the best team in the Western Conference, although by points per game, not necessarily there anymore. So, again, I sort of hinted in the intro that there's going to be this adjustment or this the way the results came through last weekend. All of a sudden everybody's starting to think, and I think rightfully so, Kevin, is that everybody just assumed that these last 6 games for the Galaxy, 7 games for the Galaxy, 8 games on the other side of the League's Cup break were going to be something. We're going to be hard for the Galaxy and easy for everybody else. And what we've been trying to say on the show is that there's a lot of games in a short amount of time. And because of that, the LA Galaxy may be in a better position, having been, quote unquote, in the clubhouse already with some of their games, having already posted a score, having already posted wins, doing all that stuff, that maybe they're in a better position than everybody has given them credit for. And maybe if Greg Vanney had anything to do with scheduling, making sure that the schedule was a little bit heavier towards the front of it when the Galaxy knew they were going to have their 3 designated players in for basically the whole season, maybe they outsmarted everybody else who was trying to push some games towards the end or had to reschedule some games. Some of it you can move around a little bit, some of it you can't, and it's just by the fact of how many different competitions you're in. But the Galaxy seem to have gotten that balance, at least right now, looking at it, pretty okay in terms of the amount of games they played up front versus what they have down the stretch with international breaks and everything else. They're not going to be the most tired team headed into the playoffs when all this wraps up.
But after the Cobi break, we'll talk about their schedule remaining. It is tough.
Yeah.
It is really tough.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it has to be. I think that one of the things that we have always said is that whenever you're a bad team, that your schedule's always very tough because there's a lot of good, because the teams are always better than you. I'll say this. The LA Galaxy are playing teams that they should beat, quite honestly. Outside of LAFC, it's probably the most even game that they have, but you look through the conference of what the Galaxy have been able to do, and I don't think there's anybody in there who you say, oh, wow, that's just, there's going to be a lot of tough games. I agree with you, but it's nobody who I don't think the Galaxy can't handle as long as they're playing well. That is up to them now. I don't think talent-wise there's any sort of issues there or how that's going, but anyway, we're sort of getting ready for Cobi Jones to join us here in just a minute or so, but talking about Ventura County FC and sort of how that all came about. It's one of the reasons we wanted to get Cobi on. So certainly it'll be interesting to sort of hear his perspective on things, especially Ventura County, and then also about this LA Galaxy team, because I think that's interesting. You think there's a huge difference, Kevin, between sort of the 1996 teams, and we've always joked about that the game really has changed since 1996. But do you think, as far as the team building and the camaraderie and everything that sort of happened in there, do we think that has changed a whole bunch?
Oh yeah, and they got rid of the leather ball too. I think that was a big difference.
Yeah.
I think it's changed night and day, and I think the way the league looks at itself, it doesn't look at itself as a league that gets a bunch of players out of U.S. colleges.
Right.
We got Messi's playing here this year. Olivier Giroud.
I've heard of those guys.
Yeah, and Zlatan just left, and and there's now going to be 30 teams in soccer-specific stadiums. Yeah, it's night and day. It's kind of like looking at the 27 Yankees compared to the Dodgers this year. Which lineup is better?
All right, we'll get to that. But joining us now on the phone is former U.S. international who played in 3 World Cups, spent 15 seasons between coaching and playing with the LA Galaxy. He is an LA Galaxy legend. He's also a U.S. Hall of Fame inductee and has been an analyst for the Pac-12 Network and Spectrum Sportsnet over the years, and most recently is part of the ownership group Oak Sports Holdings, who have partnered with the LA Galaxy. They're up in Thousand Oaks for Ventura County FC. We're very honored to have an LA Galaxy legend on the phone with us. Everybody, please welcome to the show, Mr. Cobi Jones. Cobi, did we get you on there?
Yes, you did. You said so much stuff there, but I think you got it all.
I think I got, well, good. I even wrote it down this time. I was well prepared. It's our, of course, honor to have you on the podcast, and we always appreciate you taking the time and certainly to call in today. I want to get to Ventura County because I think it's a really interesting story, but I have to sort of start a little bit with just the 2024 LA Galaxy and maybe what you've been watching and what you've been seeing. Quite the turnaround from last year, but when you look back, 1996, comparing 1996 teams to 2024 teams, it feels like we've come a long way watching those games and sort of progressing along. What's your view on just sort of the whole journey from 96 now to 2024?
Wow, that's a loaded question, right?
It is.
Obviously, it's different times. I think it's very interesting. It's very difficult to compare. I think, as far as the league is concerned, of course, we have come, we have had we've gone to the stratosphere. It's just from what we had early on and what we were expecting as players and fans and all those different things. I think it's been absolutely fantastic, to see, soccer-specific stadiums and these stadiums, hundreds of millions of dollars and ownership groups coming in and
right.
Fan bases that are incredible. This is all great. I think as far as the play and everything, I think you're definitely seeing like another level of the play, come up as far as like the talent that you're starting to see come in from a European perspective, because I think people, tend to forget that those early years of MLS, we also had, national team players from various countries, playing on the different national teams. I think one of the big things is though you didn't have as many, and that's probably one of the big changes, as far as there's a significant stratification, I would say, as far as the level of the teams if you're comparing 96 to now.
Yeah, it certainly seems that. I always ask this question to former MLS Cup winners, and I'd like your opinion on it as well. When you guys were winning championships with the LA Galaxy, how much did the locker room matter to you guys? Were you? I never say were you guys all friends, but did you guys get along? Did that matter? Did how it was organized in the locker room, do you think matter to your success on the field?
Yes, without a doubt. That matters. Probably the most important thing, because it's extremely important on how the players get along. Because I'll tell you, I've been on teams and with the Galaxy national team, whatever, it's not always the best players that are playing on the field and have success. It's the ones that have the most success are when the group is able to work well together, and they understand one another. And some of the best teams that I've been on, where we won championships and we won titles, we won that initial CONCACAF Cup, with us. We had players on the team. Look, I'll tell you this. We had fist fights.
Right.
There were fist fights, during trainings at times. That happens when you're in an atmosphere of, young, highly competitive, young men all together, and competing on a daily basis. You're going to find that where it bubbles over at times. But the big difference is we understood that there was a bigger goal in the end. So whatever happened on the practice field, I guarantee the next day it was laughed about and joked. You could put that behind you with an understanding that there's a broader and more common goal that we were all striving for.
Cobi, you maybe some people don't realize you are the only unbeaten and winless manager in Galaxy history. You had one game behind the bench and it was 2-2. draw. But you also were legendary analysts with Joe Tutino, and so those are two things people remember you for. But I also understood you played a little bit on the team for a while. You were actually part of that foundation that set the Galaxy up to succeed and started them on this record-setting 5 MLS Cups. I ask all that to ask you, have you talked to anyone? Has anyone approached you? A lot of fans want to see a statue of you in Legends Plaza. Is that something that would mean something to you? Is that something that you've even thought about?
Well, look, as I go into the stadiums, I see it all the time. So, of course, I've thought about that. Yes, fans have approached me about that. I don't know the specifics on all of that. I mean, of course, that would be an honor. That's something that I would, without a doubt, appreciate beyond, just myself. But, it's almost like a recognition of the whole era. But, that's not something for me to to really say. I don't know that others are in charge of all of that. I don't know how that comes about. I don't know. I don't have the details. Let's put it that way.
You played with Greg Vanney on the Galaxy, correct? He was a teammate of yours.
Yes, I did. Yes, I played with Greg Vanney.
You see the success he had in Toronto and the success he's having now. We talked before you came on about how I believe he is a lead pipe cinch for Coach of the Year. I think he should win it. I don't think he will, but I think he should. I'm just wondering, when you saw him and knew him as a teammate, did you look at him and say, here's a guy that someday is going to be one of the best coaches in the league? Was that apparent at that time, or were you a little surprised?
No one no one says, oh yeah, this guy's going to be the best coach in the league. Now, if anyone tells you yes, they said that about anybody, they're lying to you. Now, what I did notice, I could tell you about Greg Vanney during that time, he was very analytical and he was very in tune with what was happening within the game, and as far as the growth of the sport, just in general, but also, the day in and day outs of teams and organizations. And he had a soccer mind, so to speak, early on, where he was much more involved in those little nuances of the game, about front office nuances and coaching nuances, more so than I had seen any other player. So in that aspect, I could see, yes, I could say there was going to be something within the soccer world after that, for Greg after he was done playing, for sure. That's without a doubt.
Yeah, I think I've heard that before. I think some of the other coaching staff would agree with you on that. So I want to talk about Ventura County because I think it's a really interesting story in terms of what you guys are trying to do and how you guys are going about it. Part of the ownership group with Oak Sports Holding, you guys come in and sort of do the daily operation stuff while the LA Galaxy are still controlling the soccer team and everything. Up in Thousand Oaks, I've talked to some of the people around your organization there. Can you give us an idea? What was the idea behind one targeting sort of that Thousand Oaks area and combining and partnering with the LA Galaxy?
Well, it kind of. Well, when you hear this, it'll kind of fall in place for you. Well, I'm from that area, number one. I'm from Westlake Village, Thousand Oaks. That's where I grew up. That's where my soccer days were. That's where Eric Winalda grew up as well, the soccer days. So there was a huge soccer presence back in the day and still till today. Mm-hmm. I do feel that through the years, it kind of got lost in the process of people were just kind of like, oh yeah, we don't really need to go into Ventura, into that area. Not really much there, which kind of surprised me for me being from there. My family's still there, and just saying there are 2 U.S. national team players that came from this area, and then all of a sudden there wasn't a presence, a major presence there anymore. So that's why, for me, it was very important to be part of this and to help this process come about, with this partnership with the Galaxy to have the second team move up there. When the opportunity arose, it made sense to me because I knew that there's a fan base there, that there is a how would I say a fan base that wants soccer, that wants professional soccer in the area, and that would support professional soccer. I just knew it in my heart. Mm-hmm. Being from that area, I'd seen it over the years. So there's an expectation. I knew if the second team of the Galaxy moved up there, that without a doubt, there would be support for it.
Yeah, and it sort of seems that, rightfully or wrongly, there's sort of a void of professional sports maybe in that area, right? And so maybe it was a little bit of, as you said, you're from there, you knew that it could support something. There's other professional sports aren't around either. To say all that, it's basically, I've looked at what you guys have been able to do in a short amount of time, and certainly I think credit comes to you, Cobi, to be able to weave the way that your storytelling is from growing up there and then being able to bring professional soccer there. But you guys have been successful in getting people in the stands. Maybe that's not a surprise to you. I think just watching all the LA Galaxy 2 games over the years, it's a surprise to me. Yeah, and you sort of figured out that there is an unpent or a pent-up demand there for soccer.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it. If you go from basically, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say from Los Angeles, all the way up to, Santa Barbara, there's not a whole lot as far as the professional sports, landscape. There's a few as far as like the college, but in that area specifically, when you're talking about Ventura, there hasn't been a lot. So there was a want and a need for something along these lines. And I think we've shown that the fan will come out for it. The fan has come out for it. And I think it's been amazing that you see the community support, and how everyone is taken to the VCFC, in the area. There's a, you're also getting like a diehard type of vibe with the fans up in Ventura.
Yeah, you can sort of see that. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, Cobi, when you look back at when you joined the Galaxy, when you came out of UCLA, it was pretty much the Galaxy, and they were just starting. Now, if you look around, and I understand it's been a while, but now as you look around, there's a very healthy club in Orange County, a second-tier club. You got the club in Ventura. San Diego's coming online. There's 2 professional teams in LA, a women's team. There's a team now in Lancaster, which is going to be, a professional team. They're just spreading up all over the place. And in Lancaster, the soccer team is taking the place of a minor league baseball team. What does that say to you about the health of the sport and the growth of the sport? And are there enough fans in this area to support that many teams?
Yeah, are you comparing like Lancaster up to like Ventura County, because they're extremely far apart?
No, they are, but it's just the general area. People drive from I talked to a lot of people who drive from Lancaster to Galaxy games or did, because that was the professional soccer. Now it seems like there are other options. They might stay up there and watch the game. They might still come down and see the Galaxy. They might drive out to Orange County. It might be, if they go the back way to Orange County into Irvine, that might be closer. It just seems like there were no teams here, and now there's just a ton of teams, and people can pick and choose where they want to go.
Yeah, well, I think that's important. As far as the health of the sport, I think it shows without a doubt that this sport is here to stay. I think there's been a variety of markers over the years that show it. I think this is showing more of a local community presence. Look, if you're always going to have, from those different groups that you talked about, you're always going to have those fans that are going to want to go see the Galaxy, play and go to the big stadium and have that vibe and that energy. But this has more of a local tone to it, where you're like in your local community, and you're supporting in that aspect, where you can go, day in, day out, twice a month if there's a local game, and it's, just ease of access. That's compelling as well, I would think, to fans, and to be able to see something on a continuous basis, so that's the way I see it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I have 2 more questions for you before we let you get out of here, because I don't want to hold you too long. Number one is, when you look at Ventura County and sort of the way that this partnership with the Galaxy works, you guys have had success getting fans in the seats. For that reason, it looks like even there's been a reaction from the team as well. You see the team playing better in front of bigger crowds, doing all that. What's the future for this partnership? Where do you eventually want to take Ventura County?
Well, I think we continue along the lines of where we're at right now. I think this is a fabulous relationship for both sides. As it grows, we'll eventually make decisions in the future with input from the Galaxy and the Oaks group, figuring out what works best, for everybody else. And for me, in my part of this, it's really, as I've always been with this, it's like what works best, because I'm a player's guy, no matter what, what helps and supports those players. I think that, like you said, and you hinted at, getting a big fan base out there and allowing those players to play in front of that where they are the main attraction, where the fans are screaming their names rather than the first team players, that has an impact. Like you said, it motivates, and I think if you talk to some of the players, they would tell you the same thing, that it's nice to play in front of a big crowd where they are the centerpiece, So looking into the future, I mean, look, as well as I do, MLS and everything changes all the time. So we've got to go and figure it out, just together, the Oaks Group and the Galaxy.
Yep, absolutely. My final question, if we switch back to MLS real quick, looking at the 2024 LA Galaxy, just quickly, pretenders, contenders, where do you place what they've been able to do so far this season?
Did you really just ask me that? Come on, man.
I am. Hey, maybe you're going to tell me something completely off the wall.
Contenders, baby.
Absolutely.
Contenders. You know what I mean? Top of the West, contenders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I don't disagree.
Without a doubt.
I don't disagree.
Without a doubt. Just the way they're playing, you can see it, without a doubt that they're contenders, and I think, everything, like you said, everything that's happened in a year, the work that Greg Vanney has done, the work that Will Kuntz has done, I think it's been great to see just how quickly, boom, everything has changed in the positive.
Well, I will. I'll close it out with this. I know there's a lot of people, myself included, who miss hearing your voice on the calls. So hopefully, sometime in the future, that can be rectified to get you back on there, buddy. Because I know a lot of people are missing you. Well,
I appreciate that, and I'll definitely be happy to get back on the call to talk either Galaxy or VCFC. I do want to say though, I hope that everybody is paying attention to both teams, the Galaxy and the VCFC, as you see, just some of those future stars, in VCFC to the Galaxy stars right now. It's all exciting, and just for me and VCFC and what they've done and what has happened there, along with the fan base there of Los Doce, the impact that they've had, giving a good atmosphere and everything. It all helps the Ventura County community, and once again, I have to say, more than anything else, it helps the players. Yeah. I think it's fantastic to see the players respond in such a positive way to all of this.
Well, we certainly appreciate you stopping by, Cobi. We'll be sure to have you on here again real soon in the future. We can talk some more VCFC. All right.
All right. Take care.
Thanks a lot, Cobi.
Thanks. There he goes, Mr. Cobi Jones, LA Galaxy legend. We had to mix in like both there. I wanted to make sure that we got some Galaxy time, some Ventura County thing. I've talked about this a little bit, just going back to Ventura County, Kevin. I've talked about this a little bit, and I just want to say it's such a unique partnership, and it's a unique way that things are going. I'm very interested to see how it plays out. I'd like to talk to the Galaxy about how that plays out in the future, what everybody's thinking about, not just this year and not just next year, but what happens 3-4 years down the road, and whether or not this partnership can sort of, continue. For the most part, we understand that from the operations side of things, whenever you're talking about stadiums and seating and all that stuff, that's a money losing side of things, except for the gate, right? The gate brings in money and that type of thing. But the real bonus comes from whenever you're able to sell players, whenever you're able to transfer players, whenever you're able to do this stuff. I mean, soccer, for the most part, probably is still a losing proposition in the United States, and it probably is that way across the world. Whenever you look at everybody's balance sheets and everything that they're doing, you lose money on soccer. But seeing how they've sort of positioned themselves, Kevin, as the operation side of things, but they don't have anything to do with the soccer side of things. It's just a really interesting mix, and so I don't know. I want to see it progress. That's how about that?
Well, what I want to say about Cobi is, I mean, here's a guy that was part of the foundation of not just MLS, but of the national team. He was part of that team in the 90s when they just came out of missing the World Cup for 50 years in a row. Was part of that national team. I think he still has most caps in national team history. Got the Galaxy started, got MLS started, was a legendary player at UCLA. Remember that? Yep. He's a guy, and he's in the Hall of Fame, justifiably. Here's a guy that has been there and done it. And I just want to say on a personal level, whenever I need to reach out to him to ask him a question to for a story, something that he is uniquely positioned to talk about, he is always there. This is a guy that could very easily say, look, I've done my bit. I've helped build this thing. Now he's working, with a second division team, a developmental team as an owner. He's been the broadcaster, and just the guy. He came on our pod. he's still a builder. I mean, he's a guy that has built the team, but he's still there. And so when you do, and I kind of asked this question a little bit in jest, what's Cobi going to say? No, I don't want a statue yet. But when you look at that Legends Plaza, I don't know what the plans are for the future. When I look at the sort of the layout of that thing and where the first 2 statues are, I think maybe they can get 2 more in there, maybe 3.
I mean, you can go like all the way around in a circle. I think there's multiple more statues on the way. I mean, I would say like 3, 4, 5 in that. You keep going around in the circle, you keep building. Maybe you can go to an outer ring. Maybe there's an inner ring. Like there's things there that you can do to get more. I think we actually talked about this at the live show that we had at Galaxy Park because Tom Braun was there and we were like, hey, are there going to be more statues? And he was like, I can't tip anything off. I can't, which I really think means that we're talking about it, but we haven't figured out what that's going to be.
Well, I mean,
right?
Look what they do over at the crypt. I mean, they add, it seems like they add a new statue every week. And
right.
some players have multiple statues already. The ones that I think that I would vote for immediately that I think are no-brainers, I think Cobi needs to go in there.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I would say Bruce Arena. That may be a little controversial. He wasn't there a ton of years, but the success he had was unparalleled. I would say Bruce Arena. And then you know what? Why not a Phil Anschutz statue?
I mean, okay, you're missing one really big one though, and that quite honestly, I think it's between this person and Cobi for the next one, if you want to be. And who is that?
You.
Yeah, of course. Robbie Keane, right? Robbie Keane.
Well, I thought about Robbie, but Robbie was only there 5 years.
Yep, but
he did win 3 championships.
I was
and he
say,
won an MVP.
Yeah, you're talking about what you bring. If you bring cups, you get there. I mean, Siggy Schmidt, quite honestly, and maybe not. Yes, with the Galaxy certainly, but also just for his Southern California soccer roots there as well. Maybe that's controversial in there. Joe Totino, we've talked about it. Joe Totino should have a statue somewhere in there.
Yeah, he's kind of like the Chick Hearn or Bob Miller. They got statues.
The Vin Scully, those 100%. You cannot convince me, and I will stay on this forever. Joe Totino deserves a statue in there somewhere. He
deserves to be working for Apple right now. That how they bypassed that, I think that really showed that this Apple launch that they really didn't understand the history of the league.
You can maybe that's the deal, but
you can look at like if this had happened in baseball and they had bypassed Harry Carey and Vince Scully and just said, oh, those guys have been around 50 years. We're moving on to the newer generation. Yep. No, this is the history. This is why you bought this property, because of what these guys did.
Yeah. By the way, Adam $2 super chat says Carlos Ruiz could possibly be in there. Mauricio Cienfuegos is one that has to be in that discussion as well. So the problem is that we're actually having this trouble at the Train Club. I like to relate soccer problems with Train Club things, is that we name a lot of things after members who have passed away whenever they have, or I'm actually trying to institute a policy where you name stuff to people before they die. I'm like, hey, how about you see them like be happy and maybe cry a little bit and be touched and honored instead of them being in a pine box before you have to name something after them. Like they don't get to enjoy it while they're there. So working at that. But you eventually run out of space, you run out of things. So how do you come up with a process for this, right? And I would imagine the Galaxy front office has to come up with that. But let's see, Jeff, by the way, gave us a $5 super chat and says, question for Cobi. I'm sorry we didn't get to it, Jeff. We had a small window with Cobi, just wanted to make sure, but what would the pep talk be you're giving to the squad at this stage in the season, right? If Cobi comes in and Greg Vanney says, Cobi, I need you for a pep talk, what is it? That's been an interesting one. I'll actually, I'll reach out to, and Cobi and ask him if that maybe I can read that next time, or we'll save it for the next time he comes on. $10 super chat from Angel. What's up, COG squad? Quick B-Day shout out to the homie Kevin, and shout out to the homie Adrian and Ed who listened to the pod. Thanks for raising my stoke tank on Monday night. Your stoke tank. That's what Kevin, you're always talking about your stoke tank.
I didn't understand any of that. Was that in English?
for yes, it was. Absolutely.
What do you think of a statue of Phil quickly? I mean, he's made a ton of money off the team. He doesn't need the recognition. His name's already on the MLS Cup trophy, but there wouldn't be an MLS if it wasn't for Phil, and there wouldn't be a Galaxy.
He's in my mind, if there's ever an MLS Hall of Fame, he's an MLS Hall of Famer, like easily first ballot, first on there, has a statue, all that. He is an LA Galaxy Hall of Famer for what he's been able to do with the LA Galaxy, and you add in all the stuff with your league. I think he should probably be a U.S. Soccer Hall of Famer whenever you look at everything that he's done for the game in the United States when it comes here. I don't think it's outrageous to say that Phil Anschutz could have a statue, in the in and around the Galaxy.
Should do it. He should do it soon. They should do it soon. Phil's getting a little up there in age, and as you mentioned, you want him to be able to come there and he deserves the accolades and deserves the applause of the fans. Yes, there's been some rough years, and people have accused Phil of sitting on the sidelines during that, and that may or may not be true. But you look at what he did in 2001, and there wouldn't be an MLS without him. There wouldn't be soccer-specific stadiums. There wouldn't have been a David Beckham.
There wouldn't have been any of those things. Raphael, $5 super chat. Do you ever see a Zlatan statue? He was only a Galaxy. He was only with the Galaxy for 2 years, but what an impact from the first game. I talked to Kevin Hartman about this at one point, and I said, "Who's the best player who ever played in Major League Soccer?" He goes, "This is Zlatan. It's not even close." Right? Just in terms of the level and quality of player that you ever see, it's Zlatan, and it's not even close. That's from somebody who's watched the league and been part of it from its inception all the way through, right? So I don't know. I think that's a more complicated one. I think there are plenty of people who get a statue before Zlatan does, but maybe the Galaxy have to build a new garden in order to put all the statues.
And that's where you were talking about the requirements. I think that you have to look at, there does have to be requirements, longevity, impact, legacy, what followed after him. I mean, if David Beckham had left and then nothing had happened, there'd been no more other foreign stars, that probably his impact wouldn't have been felt. So I think Zlatan's hurt a little bit on two of those, longevity and legacy,
right?
Because the team didn't win when he was there. The team didn't take off after he left. But certainly I agree with Kevin Hartman. I just briefly did go on a tangent. I remember one game against Real Salt Lake. It was a 3-3 draw. Every time RSL scored, Zlatan scored immediately afterwards. It was like he was playing against them by himself. Just, you score? Okay, watch this. It was an incredible individual performance in a game that everyone else in the world has forgotten.
You got it, though. It was an incredible individual performance. When you look at all the other guys who are going to get statues, it's not just about individual performance, it's about team accomplishments, right? And so that's why Cobi Jones, by the way, deserves to be in there. We got a big super chat here from Miss Pink, $50 super chat. She says, our favorite podcast. Thank you guys for all you do. Can I get a shout out for my husband Eric? It's his birthday today. Happy birthday. No, don't sing the happy birthday song. That's copyrighted. I'm going to sing this one. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Does anybody know? That was like on a Mickey record whenever I was growing up, like a Mickey Mouse, like they were singing that version of Happy Birthday. Does anybody else know that version? Anyway, happy birthday, Eric.
Happy 29th, Eric. Yeah. So you're saying that happy birthday song that they sing in restaurants all the time, that someone could walk through and they could force Applebee's to pay for that.
Did you ever watch Sports Night, the television show by Aaron Sorkin?
I did not.
Okay, so before last show on Thursday, if you ever heard our Thursday show, which went off the rails quickly, it's because Sophie and I were talking about Aaron Sorkin. We were talking about Sports Night. We were talking about West Wing. We were talking about An Affair to Remember, which is a very popular movie from the 1940s and 50s, probably, maybe even the 60s, something like that. But we were talking about that, and Sports Night to me is a hidden Aaron Sorkin gem, and one of the episodes focuses on one of the anchors sings happy birthday to somebody, and it's copyrighted. And so basically he asks everybody what song he wants them to sing from the open free range on their birthday. He goes, I can't sing you happy birthday, so what song would you like me to sing? Twinkle Twinkle Little Star? There's all these that are like free songs, but not happy birthday. So
well, you just saved us from losing Miss Pink's super chat.
Yeah, by the way, Mr. Provino says it's not copyrighted anymore. Maybe, did it expire? Is it over now? Can we use it? It's fine. Okay, good. So much for that talk. Oh, well, we lost that one. Adam, $5 super chat. This isn't soccer related, but what do you guys think of fraternities? It is my first semester at Cal State Dominguez Hills, thinking of joining one. You were asking Kevin Baxter. Kevin, were you part of a fraternity in college?
I was not.
I was going to say, I was.
Do I look like a fraternity guy? Oh, you.
I was.
Of course you were.
No, but I mean, I was part of a professional fraternity, which is much different than a social fraternity, although we made it somewhere in between, which was like some social, some professional. So the name of my fraternity, which if you want to hear nerd alert coming up, it was Alpha Eta Rho, which were the Greek letters for air, because we were my college was aeronautical management technology. So in the airline industry, so it was air. I think they're fine as long as you don't take them too seriously, and as long as the people who are there aren't too serious about them. You can make a lot of great friends. My dad still has fraternity brothers from his time back at the University of Dayton, and still talks to them and still knows them. And I know that there's people, I see people who were in fraternities at my college that still have friends there. And I still have friends from even my professional fraternity I had it. So again, as long as you're not getting into any of this hazing stuff and you're at Cal State Dominguez Hills, I think that's probably a safe space for fraternities, knowing nothing about Cal State Dominguez Hills and their fraternity culture.
I misspoke. I was part of a fraternity for less than 24 hours at Cal State Fullerton.
Yeah, they let you in.
What
and then
happened
they kicked
was
you out?
one of my roommates in the student housing there had a friend who was in the fraternity, and they were having a Greek week where they did all these activities, and one day was the cross country race. And so the fraternity signed me up to be a fraternity brother for one day. I won the race by 100 yards, and they got all the points, and then I was drummed out of the fraternity.
There you go.
Later that afternoon.
There you go. Wonderful. Well, there's a wonderful thing. I do think, however, that fraternities sometimes can be I'm on sorority TikTok. You're not on TikTok that much, right? You're not a TikTok person, Kevin?
No,
Okay.
nor am I part of a sorority.
Correct. I am definitely
Mind
one of
if we dance with your dates?
I was watching. I'm big on sorority TikTok because I think it is fascinating. Just fascinating, the levels to which these sororities are doing all this stuff. It's just amazing. Anyway, that's not a judgment. It's more like my guilty pleasure that's what I like to watch. So, yeah, that's where we're at. So, anyway, that's my thought.
How did we get talking about
We
all
got
this?
asked about it, so we will answer.
Okay.
That's why.
We're not going to talk anymore about Aaron Sorkin, are we?
We should.
Okay.
West Wing.
I saw
Sports
this. I
Night.
found this show on Netflix this weekend. Band of Brothers. Did you ever see it?
I have. Yeah.
pretty good.
I just discovered Band of Brothers.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's what I heard. My current Netflix watch is Fire Country, which is about Cal Fire and the convict camps. And then, by the way, totally a soap opera. Like whenever you get into it's a soap.
But that's true. I mean, those inmates are amazing.
They are absolutely. But this is
The women one are even better than the men. firefighters.
They show both sides, all that stuff. But I actually know somebody who works for or who worked for Cal Fire Authority, Orange County Fire Authority. And I was like, hey, I'm watching Fire Country. I'm like, just tell me how stupid it is. Like, tell me. He goes, I haven't watched it. I won't watch it. They probably get everything wrong. The whole day. And he goes, I used to watch one. I can't remember what it was. He goes, it was closer to being accurate, but we all used to laugh about it. So the firemen are out there, and the fire ladies are out there laughing at all these shows, which is fine. All right, let's get back to the LA Galaxy a little bit. Again, big shout out to Cobi Jones for stopping by. Certainly appreciate that. We have El Trafico coming up on Saturday, Kevin. Results wise over the weekend. There was this big sort of push for the LA Galaxy and what could possibly happen to them in this international break. It was set up for RSL to be able to get 3 more points. It was set up for LAFC to be able to get 3 more points, and those things did not happen.
And look what happened to Columbus. Speaking of the supporters,
Yeah, I was
Shield.
going to say, was that 4-0 to Seattle that I saw?
Yes, because their goalkeeper got a straight red card to start the second half,
and they only had
a
one
position player in there,
and they only had one goalkeeper, and so then they had to do that for the rest. I saw that. I mean, so anything can happen in this league, which is really what we want to highlight. But what interesting thing happened to me whenever I was watching is we've always looked at the points per game, and we've looked at those points per game, and then we've been able to go down and see LAFC have more points per game than the LA Galaxy because they played less games and they've had a better record in those games, right? They may not have had more points than the LA Galaxy at the time, but it was anticipated that they would be able to jump over the LA Galaxy because their points per game was higher. This is where we get into the games in hand are not just 3 points, right? Games in hand, you can't say, oh, well, you have 3 games in hand, so that's 9 points. No, that's a possible 9 points. And so for LAFC, who had, I believe, 6 players on international duty and have been playing a ton of games, they looked exhausted. They went to Houston. They played Houston the weekend before. Then they went to Houston to play. They looked exhausted. That game ended in a draw. So LAFC got 1 point out of their possible 3 points with that game in hand that they were playing this weekend. And that now makes it that the LA Galaxy now just 2 games ahead of LAFC, but now have a better points per game than LAFC. So the 1.86 points per game is now tops in the Western Conference and sets the LA Galaxy ahead both on points and on points per game. 52 points, 1.86 points per game to LAFC's 48 points, 1.85 points per game. So just right there, basically tied on points per game. But now it just means that LAFC have just 2 games in hand on the LA Galaxy.
Yeah. And what the other thing it means is that LAFC cannot jump over the Galaxy even if they do win this weekend, this Saturday at Dignity Health Sports Park, because they trail by 4 points. By the way, you set a lot of the stuff up. This is my little paper that I told you I had some stuff prepared. This again, we've talked about this before. We're going to talk about it for the rest of the show probably. This game on Saturday is huge. I think it's probably the Galaxy's biggest game in 6 or 7 seasons, I would say. I mean, I know they've been to the playoffs before and stuff, but they were always a team that kind of snuck into the playoffs and it was like, how far can they go? Well, the 2 times they've been in the playoffs since LAFC entered the league, they went to BMO Stadium and they lost. So they've lost to LAFC there. What they need to do if they want to get over that hump, I think, is they need to win and have home field advantage in the playoffs. Now, the Galaxy are the only team in the league. First of all, they have the best home record in the league with 10. They're 10-1-3. The only team in the league that hasn't lost at home. Their only loss was at the Rose Bowl, which was a home game, but it's not their home stadium. So they have not lost at Dignity Health Sports Park. If they get the home field advantage in the playoffs, that's going to be huge. If you look at the 2 teams, the Galaxy have the much more difficult schedule after this game going forward. They play 5 after this game. They'll play 5 more games. They'll play 3 on the road: Portland, Colorado, and Houston. All teams with winning records. Colorado at altitude, Portland on turf, Houston last game of the season in the humidity in Houston. They have 2 at home: Vancouver, another playoff team with a winning record, and Austin. So Austin, the only team with a losing record, they play in the last 5. If you look at LAFC, the Galaxy game is the first of 7 games they will play in 21 days, including the U.S. Open Cup. But of their final 7 MLS games, not counting the Open Cup, of their final 7, 5 of the teams they play are the bottom 5 teams in the Western Conference. They only play 2 of their final 7 games against teams with winning records. That's at Cincinnati, which is a difficult road trip, and then they play Vancouver. So the schedule favors LAFC with the exception of the amount of games they have. If the Galaxy win this weekend, then they would have 55 points, right? They would be up by 7. That's a difficult climb for LAFC, even if the Galaxy struggle a little bit. And remember, too, this is the Galaxy team that lost 18 games last year. They got a chance to win 18. If they win three of their last 6, they'll win 18. That's a big, big turnaround. Yeah,
gigantic turnaround when you look at it. I think you hinted on the mental aspect of it, and Sophie and I dove into it on Thursday. Is one of the reasons that I can realistically call Saturday a must-win game, and I'm in on that, because if you're the LA Galaxy, you want to win MLS Cup. This is your easiest path to MLS Cup, which is beating LAFC, pushing them down and holding them from getting any more points, adding 3 more points to the distance between you, meaning that those 2 games that are in hand now for LAFC, they can't use to jump you, right? So basically, as long as you keep pace with them in the games where you both play at the same time, LAFC cannot jump you. And so that ends up being a really important thing. Controlling your own destiny is such a huge advantage whenever you go down things.
And here's another thing: that Columbus game that Seattle won that game 4-0, that we didn't talk about. Defending MLS champions looked really good when they beat LAFC in the League's Cup. They're now behind the Galaxy in Supporters Shield standings, and if they stay there, that means the only team that could host the Galaxy in the MLS Cup final would be Miami, the way the standings are right now.
Right.
That means if Miami loses, which I think they will in the playoffs, MLS Cup comes to Dignity Health Sports Park. Again, a stadium where the Galaxy have not lost. They've only lost once at home this year, and that was at the Rose Bowl. So the Galaxy would have the best home record and would play at home throughout the playoffs if Columbus stays behind them in Supporters Shield standing and Miami loses, which I think they will.
Yeah, it is. Hey, this is where it all comes down to it, right? You can see the LA Galaxy sitting alone in second place in that Supporters Shield standings. If you want to go points per game, Cincinnati will jump them and Columbus will jump them as of right now, but those are the only 2 teams that would then move up in terms of points per game. The LA Galaxy still in that clubhouse. I'm going to use the golf term over and over again. When you post the score, it's a low score. You go out early in the morning, Kevin, you post it by about 12:30. You're in there drinking a beer and watching everybody else try to chase you down. That's the LA Galaxy right now. The only problem is they can't be drinking beer this weekend. They'll have to play against LAFC in what will be a monumental game.
Well, they could have beer on Sunday.
They can, absolutely. After a win, you could have some beer, right? Absolutely. That's sure. I think in the Bundesliga, they encouraged you after a game to go drink beer because it had to do with like replenishing carbs and all sorts of other things that you were supposed. They would go out and drink beer. Beer is part of the German culture.
Are you saying that I can have a beer that's been medicinal?
Yes. Oh, 100%.
Oh,
100%.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I drink. I had my beer for this month, so I'm good. But I so don't drink anymore. My wife and I were just talking about this. There was no plan, Kevin. There was no, hey, let's stop drinking. It was just, we're so exhausted with like having a 4-year-old doing all this stuff and trying to keep up, and it's just like I can't be like hungover the next day. I can't even have like my system off a little bit the next day. So, it's one of those things you sort of I gave up. Some people drink more when they have kids, which I understand as well. I have decided to go the other way apparently in all of that. One of the situations that is flaring up for the LA Galaxy right now, if we can move past a little bit past everything that's going on, just in terms of standings and stuff like that. Joseph Paintsil away on international duty. Now, Joseph Paintsil was supposed to be headed to Niger with Ghana as they were going to play that game. He did not make that flight, and the reason he did not make that flight is apparently he had some passport issues that he had to take care of. Now, apparently, according to Joseph Paintsil, and it's sort of been reported this way, is that those passport issues have to do with his work visa or his permit status in the United States, and so he has to do stuff at the U.S. Embassy, and I think that they were hoping that that would be a quick thing to do, but instead they said, their coach, I believe, said it was going to take 3 or 4 or 5 days for it to get done, and it wasn't done, so he did not travel with them. I did not get a chance to reach out to the LA Galaxy to see if that would preclude Joseph Paintsil from obviously coming back from Ghana and getting back in, but he is suspended for the game against LAFC this weekend with yellow card accumulation, so he would not be there anyway. Having said that, it sounds like if that was an issue, it might have been a huge issue because I don't know that he would make it back in time for the game coming up on Saturday. Don't know that. I'm hoping everything gets cleared up, and I haven't been able to ask about it yet, Kevin, but it's certainly an interesting little twist and a lot of stuff that has been going on with visas and P1 visas and international transfer certificates and all that. You always hope that the paperwork is always good, and we don't know exactly what the issue is here, but Joseph Paintsil did make some allusion to the fact that it was a permit issue or work permit, which would be part of the P1 visa and all that fun stuff. So I don't know. It's an interesting little twist.
Well, he's unavailable, but somebody who needs to be available for the Galaxy here down the stretch, these final 6 tough games, and Saturday, bigger than any of them, is Dejan Jovalic. We saw what happened in St. Louis when the Galaxy do not have a true number 9. Everything else just doesn't seem to fall into place. And either you got to put Marion Barry out there or Miguel Barry out there and hope that a big body in the middle is gonna take care of that problem, or Dejan Jovalic needs to get back on the field for these final. I know he played off the bench in St. Louis, but he needs to start. I think the Galaxy is just a different team when he's out there.
Yeah, I think so as well. The other part of it is that, with injuries and stuff like that, he will play the amount of minutes he's able to play, and it won't be any more than that, right? Because the game is very, very, very important, and I'd even call it a must-win if the Galaxy are looking to win an MLS Cup, right? I think that's sort of the general idea there, and they are. But it's not so important that you would risk Dejan Jovalic and being like, hey, you have to start and go, 75 minutes because we're going to need you.
Well, you just said it was a must-win.
I did.
Okay.
If the Galaxy
must win, it's a must play.
No, it's not. That's the whole thing. Because that's short-sighted. If you force Dejan Jovalic to go into something where he's not 100% fit, where he can't do it, and he gets hurt, now you're in trouble. And that goes for any player. It doesn't matter how important the game is. Sometimes you have to shut players down. When it's an MLS Cup and you're in the playoffs, and that's whenever they decide that they want to stay out there and they're not coming in, even though there's a possibility of a serious injury and there's an off season that's looming. That's whenever those guys will stay back out there. But Dejan Jovalic, I think, will get his playing time. I don't know if he's going to start, but I certainly think that in this off week, he's been working pretty hard in order to do that. I think I Got Jams was talking about, Mitrovic being back on the bench and all of those things. And it's like, hey, the dude decided not to get on a flight, and so he got punished for it, and everything's good. And now you turn the page, and hopefully that's okay down the way. I mean, the big deal is that we've talked about this a whole bunch, is that John McCarthy is right on the edge for all this stuff. If John McCarthy starts having bad games here, even in the last couple of games, I wouldn't be surprised if Mitrovic gets thrown in there. At this point, it's not about, hey, I'm glad we're going to stick with you forever and ever. It's who's going to get me to the playoffs, who's going to get me into the playoffs, who's going to win me playoffs, who's going to win me an MLS Cup. And at that point, it's best person plays 100%. So whoever's hottest will play.
Speaking of goalkeepers, the Galaxy had a situation several years ago, somewhat similar to the Columbus situation, where they had to use an outfield player. And it was Mike McGee, and he wound up making 3 saves in a game, and I think they got the shutout.
Yes.
If the Galaxy had that situation now where they had to go to an outfield player to play goalkeeper, who would you pick?
Who would I pick?
I think it's easy to say Yoshida. He's a defender. He's a big guy. He's a center back.
No, I wouldn't.
But I don't think he has the footwork. I don't know. Surreal.
Too small.
Brugman maybe, or Diego Fagundes, maybe Gabriel
small.
Peck.
Miguel Barry. That's who it is. Miguel Barry.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, Miguel Barry. He's got the body for it, I think. Miguel Barry. Who else is?
But remember, Mike McGee was a small guy.
Yeah.
I remember when Mia Hamm had to play for the U.S. women's national team, and the jersey didn't fit her. She looked like she was wearing her dad's work shirt. Her hands didn't come out the bottom, and the jersey went down to her knees.
Oh, well, people are saying Yamane with the defensive mind, quick feet, that whole thing. It could be. I still think that Miguel Berry actually fits the profile of a goalkeeper probably more than strikers and goalkeepers are both crazy. So I think that you could get something out of that.
Well, you know what the thing with the striker mentality, first of all, when you look at coaches, managers, successful managers, most of them, and this is actually a story I did not recently, at one point, most of them are defensive midfielders or defenders, or maybe goalkeepers. You look at Bruce Arena, Bob Bradley, Greg Vanney, Pep Guardiola, most of the successful managers were defensive-minded players. Why? Because they see the entire field in front of them.
Right.
But I do like the idea of putting a striker in goal because they know the striker mentality. They know as a striker's coming forward, they understand what the striker's thinking and what he's going to try to do. So in an emergency situation, I see that. I think Miguel Berry might be a good choice.
Well, the LA Galaxy will be playing LAFC coming up this weekend. It is September 14th at 7:30 p.m. I believe 7:40 is going to be your kickoff time. The LA Galaxy announced sort of their pregame party at Galaxy Park, so fans are encouraged to stop by the pregame party where they can take part in a wide range of family-friendly activities with drinks, music before gates open at 5:30 Pacific time. The first 100 guests arriving to the park will receive a free Galaxy drink koozie. Then there's also the Glitch Mob pregame entertainment. Those are your DJs for this fun El Trafico. There's Soccer Fest up there with Cosmos Cadets, LA Galaxy Youth Programming, the LA Galaxy Foundation. And ticket sales will also have their booths there with AYSO. Is it OLA, HOLA, Positive Coaching Alliance, and LA versus Hate also in attendance. Then there's the LA Galaxy Foundation. So there's a lot of stuff going on for this weekend for the El Trafico, and one of which, Kevin, in this particular case, and I'd like to get to Adam, because Adam gave us $2 super chat and said, Josh, you won't be covering the game this weekend. I will have limited coverage as I am off to Colorado this weekend, so I will be missing this one, but I will be watching on the computer and anything else I can do whenever I have two kiddos jumping all over me. But that will be, of course, Saturday night, and we should be back from all of our activities and tuck the little kiddos in bed, and maybe the older one and I get to stay up and watch the LA Galaxy and El Trafico. So I'll be around. I just won't be providing full coverage for it.
Are you going to go scout the Rapids while you're there?
Yeah, I did think about going to the Saturday night. Colorado was playing, and I have been to Dick's Sporting Goods Park multiple times over the years. It's probably the place I've seen. It's the only other MLS team I've seen on multiple occasions and been in the stadium multiple times. Watch.
San Jose.
San Jose, I've been there. I mean, San Jose, I've been to Seattle, but like Colorado far outpaces both those. I've probably been to like 10, 12, 15 games over there.
But have you ever seen Kevin Cabral play a home game there?
I have not.
Okay, there you go.
So I could do it, but we are riding a train earlier that day. I think it's going to be a long day. Jake is going with me, so I have the 4-year-old and the oldest because it's my wife's birthday. So for my wife's birthday, she stays home and I get to go on the road with the young one, and she's very, very excited about that. So that's what will be going on for that. But I'll be watching because obviously I know the importance of all that. So, and I'll be back on Thursday night with a preview of that game. So lots of stuff going for El Trafico. We'll get you ready to rock and roll. Happy birthday to Mr. Sasha Kleshton. It was his birthday.
And
today.
Eric,
our listener from Miss Pink, certainly. So no, we hope everybody has a good rest of the time. Anything else you want to get to, Kevin? Any last?
Yes, I have. Yes, today's moment in Galaxy trivia.
Okay.
Because Cobi was on.
Mm-hmm.
Cobi was interim coach in the 2008 season.
Mm-hmm.
Coach managed one game. It was a 2-2 draw with Chivas USA, obviously at then Home Depot Stadium. The next game was Bruce Arena's first game.
Okay.
It was against the Chicago Fire.
Mm-hmm. Galaxy
lost 1-0. You know who scored the only goal of that game?
I do, but you should let you.
Yes, you do. John Thorrington.
Yeah.
Now the general manager at LAFC. So.
No.
There you go. That's our this date in Galaxy trivia.
There you go. It's always interesting on that.
An El Trafico week trivia question too.
Let's see. I wanted to say somebody was asking me when media is going to be, and media is going to be Thursday. Thursday is going to be media availability, so I should be able to talk to everybody on Thursday, and then we'll get everybody ready for that Thursday night show, so we'll have everybody's comments for that. So, all right, I think that does it. Let's wrap it up in an El Trafico week. Big shout out again to Mr. Cobi Jones for coming on the show. Certainly appreciate his time, and Ventura County FC for making him available to us, so we're excited, and hopefully we'll get Cobi back on the show here very soon. We can talk some more VCFC, talk some more LA Galaxy. Cobi can make fun of my takes a little bit more, and he's right. It was a ridiculous question. I'm glad he called me out.
One of the two most famous Cobis in LA sports history.
Wait, right here. I mean, and good Lord, what a legend he is. He's just, he has so much soccer knowledge. So much perspective. He was there. He was on the ground in 96. You know, he was playing in the World Cup in 94, right? So he was there from the absolute start of all this. So it's always good.
Leather balls and everything.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and I'll say it again. One is Mr. Christian Miles, who has been a host on the show before, is getting some time on Apple TV, and rightfully so, and it's good to see him out there. Cobi needs to be one of those guys doing games again, especially doing LA Galaxy games with Joe. So not all is right with the world until those two are sitting next to each other doing Galaxy games. So again, big shout out to Mr. Cobi Jones for coming by. All right, let's get out of here. If you're looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on Twitter and X, it's at KBaxter11. Head over to LATimes.com. Kevin will be off with the Chargers, covering the Chargers, so make sure you check that out, LATimes.com, for all of the wonderful coverage. If you're looking for me on Twitter and X, at Guesman, at Galaxy Podcast, head on over to cornerthegalaxy.com. Of course, our podcast is on YouTube. It's on Apple iTunes. It's on SoundCloud. It's on all those fun things. That's where you can find us. And so we are glad that you are stopping by to hang out with us on a Monday. We'll be back on Thursday to get you ready for the rest of El Trafico. All right, for Mr. Kevin, the Panda Baxter, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.